All right, you're being recorded, just so you know. It's a Sunday. Happy Sunday, and welcome to Talk to Me Africa. Today is special because I'm having for the very first time on this show an elected African into public office in the United States. You hear more about that. But I want to say thank you for always joining me on Talk to Me Africa, where I bring information that informs, educate, and if I entertain you, that is a plus. So thank you for joining us today. Today, let me introduce my guest to you. He is Mr. Pious Ali. He is City Councilor at Large and Mayor ProTem in the city of Portland in Maine. We'll explain to you what Mayor ProTem means in a minute. He is a dedicated public servant, assertive and pragmatic leader with a compassionate, diversified skill set, which is focused in community organization, activism, and civil engagement. Mr. Pious Ali, you are from Ghana originally, and you are the first African-born Muslim American to be elected to public office in Maine, thereby becoming a member of the city elected Board of Public Education in 2013 and the City Council in 2016. Your profile is really rich. I cannot read everything on here today, but that's a summary of it. Welcome to Talk to Me Africa, Mr. Ali.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me, and thank you for educating and sharing information with our community.
Yes, I met you in Massachusetts at the MOAD third award anniversary celebration. So you do travel around to help build the African community. So I do appreciate that about you. Thank you for doing that.
You're welcome.
Before we get into the crux of the conversation, let us hear a fun fact about Mr. Ali. What's a fun fact about you?
Wow. I don't know how to swim like many. Um, I can eat at any time of the day. I don't
Uh-huh.
have like a time for breakfast or lunch. I love food.
Mhm.
I am good in the kitchen. I love to cook. I was raised by my grandmother, whose kitchen, whose household she doesn't separate boys from girls. Everybody works in the kitchen, so I learned how to cook from her.
That's
I
great.
didn't know that. Yeah, in the future, it's going to become a needed skill.
Yeah, it is a needed skill for everybody. You know, it's interesting because growing up in Africa, they made cooking to be like a woman's thing, you know.
Yeah,
But knowing that you was raised by your grandmother and you can cook very well, that's a plus. I like that.
yeah.
Yeah.
I am a middle between my mother and my father. I'm an only child, but
Mm-hmm.
on my father's side, I was the youngest of three. And
Mm-hmm.
then on my mother's child, I am a middle. I have a brother, and then I have a couple of siblings. So I don't have any sibling that is from the same mother and the same father as me.
Wow.
Um, I used to be an avid runner. I used to run long distance when I was in school. The last time I ran was when I was in middle school. Uh, what else? I love to drive to nowhere. I
Wow.
love driving. I can sit in the car and drive this way for an hour or two and then drive back. Uh,
Interesting. I hate to drive.
well, maybe you can hire me to be your driver.
Exactly. When I make that money, I'm going to hire you.
When I retire from public service. Yeah.
Yeah,
So those
exactly.
are just a few things about me that I can remember off the cuff.
That's great. I don't know why you're using your phone or your computer, but there's too much gap space between your head and the top. So if you
And
can
my
reduce
okay.
that, perfect. Yes, that's perfect now. Good. All right, let's get into it. So you are mayor pro tem. What does that mean? You're not a real mayor.
No, I am the mayor pro tem. What that means is that at any given time, so I will give you an example. Between Tuesday of this past week until Thursday, I was technically the mayor because the
Mhm.
mayor was in Rhode Island for a conference of mayors and police chiefs from New England.
Mhm.
So anytime the mayor is not available, I become the mayor. And
Mhm.
or if the mayor on from March 8th to March 10th, we are traveling to DC to a conference called National League of Cities. The mayor is not going.
Mhm.
So I go as the mayor pro tem, as the one that represents the city on behalf of the
Mhm.
city. I become the mayor on that trip.
Okay.
Um, I became the mayor pro tem because I am the longest serving city councillor. In different places, you have to run for it. Like you run for office, you become a city councillor, and then you put your name in the hat for your colleagues to pick you as the mayor pro tem. But in my city, the person who is the longest serving city councillor automatically
Becomes.
becomes the mayor. So every year, the mayor will ask me, "Do you want to be the mayor pro tem this year?" If I say yes, if I say no, then they will go to the person who is the second longest serving city councillor.
That's interesting. How long have you been the mayor pro tem?
I think, let me see. This is my 4th year of being the mayor pro tem. Yeah.
Is that something you like to do? How does it feel like to be the mayor
I
for a short time?
I think it's a skill learning position. You don't get like a extra stipend or anything, but when the mayor is not there, you get the opportunity to chair the meeting, to be the mayor of the meeting, and it gives you a platform to practice in the mayor. I ran in 2018, and of course, I'm not the mayor, because if I am, I will not be the mayor pro tem.
Yeah.
I didn't win. However, during that, if someone said that, well, you don't have what it takes to be the mayor, I can say that I've been the mayor pro tem for the past 2 years.
Yeah.
So I've shown that I have I've been in the system for some time, so I
Yeah.
have the ability and the skills
You're,
to
you're
do it.
building a portfolio in case you have to run for an actual mayor tenure.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I did see that you grew up in Ghana and then you moved to America. How was it like growing up in Ghana? Did you ever envision yourself coming to America and running for public office?
Not at all. But I've always been, I don't want to say political, I've always been conscious about who I am and what my values are, and also who I am in at a global stage. I grew up in a household. I was raised by my grandmother. You are from Africa, and I think some of your viewers will understand this. That in order not to get grandmothers and grandfathers to become very dormant, parents will not dump, they will bring their kids to them, and
To
then
help
they become.
raise.
Yeah, so that it's something that we have in Africa that is very unique to Africa and some other parts of the world,
Yeah.
because that keeps the grandparents active. We all know that you get to a certain age, if you are not active, your mind becomes a little bit slower and
Yeah, and this is senile.
yeah, right. But when you have kids running around, they're going to keep you on your toes. And my grandmother passed in 2023 at the age of 115. But
Wow.
if you look at her record, she's raised so many grandkids and even great grandkids. And yeah, so I grew up in Ghana, did some work in Ghana as a photojournalist. I just learned that I was Ghana's first celebrity photographer and Ghana's first paparazzi. When I
Ooh.
was in Ghana, I was interviewed by someone, and he said, "I did some research when you were doing this, because in those days there was no social media." And then he said, "What you were doing in those days in the print news outlets,
Yeah.
people are doing that in social media now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you were photographing everybody from the everyday person on the streets to the president, and that made you Ghana's first celebrity photographer and paparazzi, because in those days, if anybody is looking for the photos of anybody in Ghana, you are the one that they go to outside the government information services. You single-handedly um, uh, uh, took over the media scene photography wise for 10 years before I left for US. So
That's great. I mean, I studied broadcasting, and so one of my courses was photojournalism. And you get to learn how to take the pictures because not every angle makes sense,
yeah,
And so today you just have people who just are out there just broadcasting in any order. My kids know always like, hey, don't take that picture, do this. Look, like, mom, you're too particular. I say, because I studied this. It's a skill. You have to know how to take these pictures to
it is
sell
a
the
skill.
angle you want to sell. So yeah,
Yeah,
and also it's a profession that is kind of not well acknowledged. Even today, you look at
yeah,
newspapers and the articles that go with the pictures, people don't really care how the pictures are taken or why that particular
Yeah.
picture, but there's a reason why you would take that picture and use and not the other one. So kudos to you and to all who still do, such dormant but very important profession called photojournalism. It's very important.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't even know if it exists now because now every Harry and Tom does have a cell phone which is
Mhm.
been crafted very well that will take
Mhm.
some of the photos that are taken with cell phones can rival
Yeah,
professional cameras. Yeah.
cameras. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. I
I
mean, it
agree.
makes the profession very easy, but it's
Mhm.
also, yeah,
It's a challenge if you are actual professional these days because everybody can do that
yeah.
and do it sometimes, like you say, even better. Now, what made you come to Maine and decide to run for office? Yeah, you say you always were, vocal back home, but running for public office? What inspired you to do that?
So I never envisioned myself running for office anywhere, let alone in a country that I was not born and raised.
Hmm.
Um, when I first came, I lived in New York for 2 years. I came to the US in 2000. And in 2002, I think 2001, we came for Thanksgiving visit or something here in Portland, Maine, to a friend of mine, Ebenezer. And I fell in love with Portland. So I moved here a year later or something and move here because it's more of a smaller place, laid back, have a sense of community and the art scene, and it was amazing. So
Yeah.
you can imagine a photographer coming from Ghana and seeing a place where I could see myself being part of this community. There's not that many African immigrants then. There were a small number of Somalis and South Sudanese and Sudanese in general. And so I decided to move here.
Hmm.
Uh, got a job at a restaurant, learning, as I told you before we get on the conversation, that when I was raised by my grandmother, I love to cook. So I got a job in a restaurant. I tried to get into the newspaper scene. It didn't work because they asked me a few questions. I showed them my portfolio from Ghana. Like, oh yeah, it's beautiful, but we are not hiring. So I found a job with a restaurant, and then eventually I started working with young people in an after-school program.
Hmm.
Right? And most of these young people are immigrants from Africa, from South America,
Yeah.
and then poor white kids. So that was my exposure to some of the challenges that America is facing around
Hmm.
poverty, around race, around class. I learned all of those from those young people. Eventually, I had a job with homeless kids and also volunteer at a place where I work with young people who are incarcerated. In this country, young people as young as 12 years can be sent to jail.
Yeah.
We don't call it jail, we call it a youth development center. But once you go in there and you hear the click of that metallic door,
Mm.
it is nothing but jail.
Yeah.
So all of this combined kind of like shape my experience in wanting to make the world a better place. I founded a couple of organizations. One of them was one that I ran for 13 years. I literally
Mm.
just stepped down so that I can do something else.
Hmm.
Um, and when I started that organization, I have one of my colleagues who one day came came to work and said to me, "Hey, there is an opening on the board of education, and there
Hmm.
are 5 people who are running, but I think you need to be the sixth one. There are 2 seats. Probably you get one. Your voice is needed on the school board." And I said to her that I'm not interested in politics. Then she said, "Tada! Since you moved to this city, everything that you've done is politics." Because
Yeah.
I've worked with NWSCP, I've
Hmm.
organized rallies, I've organized protests, I have advocated for families, for kids. So she knew that, and she said everything that you've been doing, even the job that you have, because the
Yeah.
job was getting immigrant parents to understand how education work and also advocate for policies that meet the need of immigrants and other minority
Hmm.
or marginalized groups. She said, everything you are doing is politics, and you said you are not interested in politics. And I said, I'm not interested in organized politics.
Yeah.
She was persistent. She would not leave me alone until when I went and picked up papers and collected signatures. During collection of the signatures, anybody that I said, my name is Pious Ali, I'm running for Board of Education, they'll say, oh, yeah, Pious, you are the right person for the job. Then they will sign it.
Okay.
I collected my signatures and got my name on the ballot. Social media was not like it was has been available.
Mhm.
2013, I used that for my campaign. I had young people from not just my city, from neighboring cities coming to campaign for me. So my campaign was fueled by high school and college students. I would go to a neighborhood
Wow.
with a lot of young people knocking on doors and telling people
Hmm.
that for him, you should vote for him. And I got elected to the Board of Education. As you said earlier when you were introducing me, I became the first African born Muslim to be elected into any office that year. And I also became the first Ghanaian born to be elected into any office in the US in
Oh, wow.
2013.
In the public office in the US. That's
Yeah.
interesting. Wow. And so when you're running for public office, you mentioned some policies. What do you campaign on? What was your platform? What did you say? I'm going to implement, I'm going to change, and I need to see this happen in in Portland. What was your campaign platform about?
Well, my campaign was around making education equitable for everyone
Mhm.
because at that point, the organization that I founded, I think, was 2 years old. And I used to volunteer in the schools and I used to see education through one lens. But once I started that organization and I get connected to other people who are doing that work across
Mhm.
New England and across the US, I saw a different face of education in the US that you will not know until you are in the trenches. And
Mhm.
so some of the campaign language is based on what I have seen that I know is happening. Issues around what kind of books do you show to kids?
Mhm.
How do you engage marginalized groups, families? Who are the teachers who are standing in front of our students? Do they look like our students? Who are in the leadership position in the district? You may have immigrants, whether they are Africans, Middle Eastern, or South Americans. But if they are only in the kitchen, that
Yeah.
doesn't serve the kids that you work with. You might
Mhm.
want to have some of them in leadership roles. Find people who have the skills and appoint them or hire them to. So
Yeah.
that is those are some of the things. And also, I ran on the opportunity because I was a grassroots. I have always been a community organizer and grassroots worker. I believe that our institutions need to open their doors to the public, and people who work in the education space, not on the school side, on the public side, will tell you that it is difficult to get schools to open their doors for people, even for parents who have kids in the schools. The laws system is very restrictive. So I run on transparency. I run on opening and giving opportunities for people who don't normally engage the school district, the education system to do so. And that is
What is
exactly
what
what I.
is what is the cultural diversity in Portland?
Well, for several years, even before I arrived here, Portland Public Schools have close to 65 languages. Portland have a history of having immigrants from all over the world here.
Mhm.
You can talk about the Armenians; they were here in the 20s. You can talk about the
Mm.
Italians. You can talk about the Irish. You can talk about the Jewish.
Yeah.
Portland have There's a fun fact. You've asked fun fact about me, but there's a fun fact about Portland that not many people. Portland, Maine, by the way, the original Portland,
Mhm.
not the one in the other
Not
one.
in not
Those are
not
the
not in
original.
not
And
Oregon.
I have an interesting story on how the other Portland got its name.
Okay,
Once I
let's hear
tell you,
it.
there was a time that Ellis Island was not working properly. There was something that needs to be done there. Portland became the Ellis Island. There are a group of I don't know the year, but for almost 6 months or a year, immigrants that were coming came through Portland
Mhm.
because Ellis Island have some challenges, and so Portland was used briefly. And also, any any air, any plane that is coming into the U.S. through the Eastern board get into Maine first before it goes to New York or Boston or anywhere in
I
the
had no
Eastern board.
idea. That's a good fun
Yeah.
fact.
So I have this joke anytime I'm traveling, whether if it's out of the country and I'm coming to Boston or New York, and you know how the airlines will give you your screen and they will show you where you enter. I always take a video and then I will post on social media and say that if only they can drop me home before they go to
For
New
the
York. Yeah, if they can just stop for me to get off in Portland, because they will come pass through Portland and go to Boston or go to New York. Yeah.
yeah.
The fun fact that I'm going to share about Portland here and the other Portland is, so the other Portland got its name by interesting situation.
Mm-hmm.
A hunter from Portland, Maine, and Boston
Mm-hmm.
decided to go hunting in the West Coast. And when they got to where the current Portland is, they decided to settle.
Okay.
And because it's a beautiful place, they wanted to create a town. And
Mm-hmm.
then they agree. The Boston guy is, let's call it Boston. And the Portland guy said, no, we're going to call it Portland.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then
Mm-hmm.
they decided to throw a coin. And the Portland pro coin. And he picked the image that he wants.
Yeah.
And then he won. You know how he won?
Mm-mm.
The coin have the same image on both sides. Um,
Oh,
yeah, this is not a myth, or this is an actual story, because that coin
came from where?
is it's at a museum in the other Portland. And the day that I visit that Portland, I'm going to go to that museum and I'm going to say that I'm representing Portland. I want our coin back, or at least if they are going to borrow the coin for me. If
Yeah.
I was the mayor, I would have sent a delegation to go and
Yeah.
bring them back so that we
Mhm.
can show it for some time and then give it back to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe as Mayor ProTem, you can do that for a short while and say,
Oh yeah, I
here,
think I can do that. I
yeah,
I will ask for in the next time I'm in that Portland, I will just go right to the museum and tell them I'm here for our coin.
mm,
If you guys can borrow it to us, we can bring it. We can bring it back to you.
hmm.
Right? It
So
belongs.
working with the people, what are some of the pleas that you hear these days from especially the minority immigrant population in Portland? What do they cry about? What is their plea?
Well, the play is not any difference than what is going on all over the country. We are in a situation. We are at times where you don't have no idea what kind of executive order you are going to wake up
Yeah.
to. You can go to sleep at 11:30, 11:59 p.m. You can fall asleep at that time. If you wake up at 4 a.m., there may be an executive order or two that have happened between 12 a.m. and 4
Yep.
a.m. So,
Absolutely.
and most of them do impact our community. Most of them impact our neighbors. And so it is the same challenge that
Mhm.
the immigrants here and migrants elsewhere. Similar thing.
Mhm.
Some people were going to lose their PTS. Some people are going to, well, for those of you who don't know what PTS is, no, TPS, temporary
TPS,
protective
temporary
status.
protective status. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, and many other different groups of immigrants. And so those of us who are in leadership position, not just elected position, there are a lot of immigrant-led and immigrant-serving organizations here in Portland, Maine, and
Mhm.
we've always huddled to discuss what sort of information we can give to people.
Yeah.
How can we put things in place to make them feel calm and feel protected? So we are lucky that we have a lot of resources in the community to support people.
Yeah, I did read about some hate incidents that happened in Portland some while back, and you did speak up and say that you do not support hate, and people should be out there to love and not to show hate. So how is the cohabitation between the haters and those who are being hated on now in your city? I mean, I'm talking to you now as Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, so Portland has always been a welcoming, as I said earlier, we've always welcome. And anytime you have it is a natural dynamic when you have new group of people,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then you're gonna have people that will say that we don't want people here.
Yeah.
America has always been like that. There's always a scapegoat. There's always the other. And this time around, it just happened to be um, immigrants of any kind, people who are blacks, the LGBTQ community, the Jewish community. So all these are marginalized groups,
Mhm.
right? And we've had some situations where certain faceless individuals are what I call them cowards, who may have for example, there was a time that Nazi sympathizers marched in Portland,
Yep.
in downtown, went to the immigrant welcoming center, attacked someone that they perceived to be a from the LGBTQ plus community. The sad part of it is that there is a very very thin line, and these people know how to walk that thin line without crossing over
Yeah.
to make their actions criminal. So this country have a strong law that protects freedom of speech. I can say whatever I want to say to you. If I don't act on it, I cannot be held accountable by the law because it's my freedom of speech to say that. Even though we all know that you cannot just practice or use the freedom of speech to attack someone, but that is what the law says. So, as municipal government and city leaders, we are left with making resolutions and proclamations to
Mhm.
say that I'm sure that that is one of those proclamations that I issue to say that our city welcomes people, we welcome everybody. Our schools have had like a swastika being sprayed on it by
Wow.
some faceless individuals, as I say. And at any given time, being a minority myself, I'm a Muslim, I'm a black man, I am an immigrant. I have an interesting name. I always speak up. I always reassure those communities that we are here for you. We are here to
Mhm.
make sure that if the perpetrators are caught, they will go through our law system and we will punish them. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, as an elected official, what is your take on the recent, we talked about it a little bit. I read about your profile. You do work a lot with immigrant population, refugees, and all that. What is your take on some of the executive orders, especially the one that is affecting immigrants? Um, it has made a lot of immigrants scared, even the legal immigrants scared. I say, if I want to travel to a next state, I'm going with my passport because I have no idea what's going to happen. What's the atmosphere um within your community, and what would you tell the people in your community with regards to these laws that is making people be on the edge when it comes to immigration, even if you're legal in the country?
Well, I think I have said this over and over. Not just to my community, because I'm part of a lot of national groups that
Yeah.
advocate for immigrants, and some of the conversation that we do is we make sure that in all the communities that we have across the countries, there are organizations that are led by Africans and by
Mhm.
immigrants who provide know your right.
Yeah.
Different, excuse me, different municipal governments have different how do we call it policies that protect. Make sure you know those. Make sure that you understand how to engage law enforcement.
Mhm.
And please, 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 if any immigrant is listening or watching, please, please be careful not to violate any laws.
Yeah.
It could be that watch all your vehicle. Make sure that you don't have a dead tail light, a broken tail light. Don't go speeding above speed limit. Don't do things within the boundaries of law, because what is happening is that they are using if you get a small problem, then they will use that as an excuse to
Mhm.
push and ask you where are your papers. So carry all your the papers that you need to carry with you. Carry
Mhm.
the actual papers, don't do photographs.
That's
Yeah,
right.
I know. We also know that amongst us, there are people who are in the process. They are in the middle. They are not done yet. Please
Yeah.
be careful. As I said, listen and learn what your rights are, and also make a plan. Show what we all don't want to happen
Mhm.
happens to you. and you have a family, leave a strategic plan on what they need to do. Direct them to a friend or someone that can support them. Because if you are the breadwinner, or if you contribute to the upkeep of your household and you are taking, that is something that has been taken.
Yeah.
And I think uh, the language that the federal government is using is that we are trying to remove people who are criminals. Absolutely. But what we are seeing in most cases, or in some cases, is that the swap is broader. Sometimes people are taken who are legally here. My take on that is that we all don't want to, no immigrant community will hide people who are criminals. But if you started arresting everybody randomly just because they look in a certain way, or because you believe that they have a certain name so they are not documented, you're going to make it difficult for our communities to cooperate with you
Hmm.
when you come in looking for the people that you think are criminals. So I hope the federal government will stay within the boundaries of only taking out people who have committed crimes, who are in the system as criminals, because that way, even the immigrant community will, when you come to the community and talk to people, they will help you. But if you are arresting everybody, like looking at the courthouse, there's a story of a young woman that was taken from, she's from one of the South American countries. I'm not going to say names. She had a very interesting situation. She and her younger brother, she's 18, and her younger brother was 12 years. They were fighting over a cell phone, and maybe someone called the police, and she was arrested and sent to court.
Mm.
Uh, the day that the court released her, because she has never had any problem with the law before, so she was put in a diversion program. When
Mm.
she left the courthouse, ICE picked her up and they brought her to Maine, right? Someone like this young woman, her papers are all in place. She and her mother and her brother's papers, immigration status just got changed. They just have their work authorization. If a newspaper person did not do a story to start the conversation around why is ICE arresting someone like this young woman, that
Mm.
woman will have woken up one morning back home to where her parents was fleeing because of political persecution and many other challenges. So ICE needs to look at the way they operate and arrest the people that we all don't want here, and leave those who are here legally and those who are in the process of legalizing their stay here. Because other than that, it's going to be difficult for the immigrant communities across the country to partner with them.
Hmm. How inclusive is Portland, Maine? I know that one other executive order is dealing away with DEI, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion. What are you doing to keep this running, if anything at all?
Well, we have an office of DEI that we put together. Well, and I don't think we have any plan to get rid of it. We are because our city need immigrants. Our state need immigrants. Maine is one of the grayish states, and you live in New England. You know, New England is not getting any younger. New England is one of the part of the country that have a lot of geriatric, is how we say geriatric population.
Mhm.
People who are 40 and 50 years older than me, right?
Mhm.
The immigrants who are coming into our country and my state have 1 or 2 degrees. They are younger, they have young families, they are the future workforce of my city and my state. So I want to make sure that they have the support and the resources that they need to fill that empty positions that we have. Recently, Portland is cited by I think the organization is Rent Center or something as one of the best places, or the number one place out of 100 and something municipalities across the country to live. And some of what they cited is low job unemployment rate is low here,
Very low, yeah.
because we have people who are young, who are immigrants, who are skillful, and who are ready to fill in the unemployment, to fill in the workforce that is needed. So
That's
whatever I have to that will support them to grow and
mhm.
fill those positions, I will do it.
That's great. You're not dormant where you are. You create so many organizations to help support other people who need the support. You stretch your hand out. Like I read that you are the founding director at Portland Empowered, which is a Portland-based organization and which strives to ensure that students and parent voices are reflected in policy and practice in public schools. So what did you see in this public school system that made you start Portland Empowered?
Well, as I said earlier, I used to volunteer in the school system when I moved here, and there are challenges that the schools cannot do it alone. They
Hmm.
need support from outside. The schools cannot educate the kids and then educate the parents.
Yeah.
But parents, I believe that parents, especially immigrant parents, need to understand how education work in the US
Hmm.
so that
Hmm.
they can support. Back home you can drop your kid at school, and it is the responsibilities of the teacher to make sure that the kid have eaten, the kids have done this, the kid have done everything. Here it doesn't work like that. You drop your kid, you can be a parent, have to be engaged parent, have to be a parent who knows and
Yeah.
understand how education works so that you support your kid. Especially if you don't have the education here, you didn't go to school here, but you have education. And as someone said, education is similar everywhere. But we need to create a group of parents who will learn and understand how education works so that they can support not just their kids but also other parents who don't
Hmm.
understand how education system work. It comes back to the same thing that I'm saying. We need to raise young people who will fill in the workforce and also take leadership roles, and that
Yeah.
is what Portland Empowered is doing. As
Yeah.
for the records, I don't work at Portland Empowered anymore. After 13 years, I stepped down to look for other opportunities and do other things that are so that my mind will be challenged. And
Hmm.
yeah, but Portland Empowered is still running.
Yeah. I want to talk about the King Fellows, but somebody's asking, is Maine a sanctuary state?
Well, my answer will be that there is nothing called sanctuary. A sanctuary. It is a phrase that activists and other people will use to feel good about the situation. Sanctuary, sanctuary, as described, that does not have legal legs. There's nothing
Mm.
legally saying. When
You're
you create a
protected wholly because you're in a sanctuary state.
yeah,
It doesn't say that.
the federal government guys can swoop in wherever they want, and arrest anybody that they want to arrest. That is a fact. So calling someone or calling yourself sanctuary state does not protect that. Even the sanctuary as we know it, which is a church, a mosque, or a synagogue, is going to be violated. We all know that. Even though there's no written rule that says that police or people cannot go into churches or into schools or into, but they don't, right? But recently we've heard that there's an order that has been given that they can go in there and arrest immigrants. So no, we are not a sanctuary city or sanctuary state. We are a welcoming place where we welcome everybody for several reasons, because we are human, but also because we need people to work. Maine is one of the oldest states in the union. So the more young people we have who will come here that we will support, whether they are coming from Russia or they are coming from Texas or from Kentucky or from Worcester. So far as they are willing and ready to work, our doors are open. We are a welcoming place.
That's good. Now let's
And
talk
if they can
about the
withstand the snow, if they can withstand the snow, we are a very, very, very a snow-oriented state. Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you. Talk about the King Fellows. I read that the King Fellows is a Portland-based youth group dedicated to creating meaningful opportunities for youth through leadership and civic engagement based on the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and recently launched the Civic Community Engagement Fellowship at the, is it Mosque School of Public Service? So
Yeah.
we are talking
So
about the King Fellows.
So the Kin Fellows, I co-founded it with my friend, my sister, and my mentor. There's a family here, the Talbot family that have been here. They are 9 or 10 generation Mainers. They are African Americans. The father, they have a history of being in the civil rights. The
Mm,
father, Jerry Talbot, somebody that on whose shoulders most of us stand, was the first black person to be elected into any office in Maine.
mm,
I think he's in his 80s or early 90s now. His daughter, one of his kids, Rachel Talbot Ross, who was recently the Speaker of the House, State House, and now she's a senator. So Senator Talbot Ross and I met several years ago when I moved here, and we've worked closely together. If you look at my bio, it will say that I did work with the NWACP.
Yep,
She
I did
was the
see that.
president, and I did work with her closely. And then we decided to create something called Kin Fellows, based literally on some of the principles that Dr. King,
Mhm.
whom we all know and admire, and who have motivated. Yeah, so work with mostly immigrant kids, but other black kids, to build leadership and character into them. And most of them, those kids, have gone on to become, because it's a while ago, most of them have gone on to become leaders and nonprofit leaders in their own way, both in our state and out of state. And the Kin Fellows have served its purpose. It is not functioning now,
Mhm.
but it has served its purpose at that time.
That's awesome. And lastly, you co-founded the Maine Interfaith Youth Alliance. What is this
I
about? I was curious. Is it religious? Is it
Religious, it was service oriented, like the Kin Fellows. As I said to you, that I've worked with kids who are families who are living in public housing. I've worked with homeless young people, and what I found is that all these people, when you put young people together who are coming from marginalized background, they tend not to talk to each other. And I look at what I call the toolbox, the tool bag that I have. I am a Muslim. I was raised a Muslim, but I was raised in Ghana, where the Muslims and Christians get along. So I decided to create an interfaith group where I will work with young people based on faith. But we were not like a church or a mosque or a synagogue. It was more of a service-based organization
okay.
where I will bring these young people together. We go to shelters to work. We go to retirement home and have conversations with the people who were staying there who don't have anybody coming to talk to them. Yeah, I ran that. Like many things that I've run, it ran its purpose, and then I move on to, if I was in the tech industry, I will be a, how do we call people that create different
Innovative. You'll be
yeah.
like,
So
yeah, an innovator in the tech industry. You keep creating. What else are you creating recently? Well, it's, I mean, it's a wonderful conversation with you, and especially the times that we are in is very precarious and people are shaky. I have an upcoming show. I'm talking to an immigration lawyer about what to expect as an immigrant, even if you're legal or not. The stories we hear are very daunting and scary as well. But you being at the forefront of politics, when it comes to immigrants, you're the first African-born Muslim to be elected to public office in Portland, Maine, the first Ghanaian to be elected to public office in the United States. Would you advise somebody to run for public office as an African immigrant, and most especially a Muslim African immigrant, because we know that since 9/11, people just think that being a Muslim is a bad thing. So would you advise an African immigrant or maybe a Muslim immigrant to run for public office in this country?
I will advise all immigrants, and for that matter, everybody who lives here who believes that their voice are not heard, to run for office. You can run. There are many ways is that you can engage the political system. So I would say to engage the political system, not necessarily because there are few seats to go around, but there are many other opportunities to participate in the political process, whether it is at your school board level. When your kids go to school, you need to understand how is the money, because you are paying taxes and some of your taxes go into the school and the education
Yeah.
system. Not engaging the system and leaving it alone is not okay, because someone will engage them and they will make decisions that will impact you and your families, right? So whether it is the school board, the city council, state legislature, get involved. And also in a lot of places, your city government have some boards, they have some commissions that they put people in. And those
Mhm.
boards and commissions make a lot of decisions. It could be the park commission,
Yeah.
right? The park commission decides on what kind of money goes into the parks. And if you have kids, even if you don't have kids, you go to parks.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to decide how the park is taken care of. There is the art commission that shows what kind of art. We walk around cities and then you will see a statue,
Please, yeah.
right? If
Mm-hmm.
you don't participate, somebody will decide what statue will be put in there, and your values will not be reflected in the type of the your city will not reflect your culture, it will not reflect your values. So get involved in everything. State level, still, you can go to, even if you are not elected, even if you are not appointed,
Mm-hmm.
you can go to city council meetings and tell them, no, you cannot do this because you are representing me. This is how you want to vote. Pay attention and participate. It is very important, because if you don't, someone else will, and they will make a decision that will impact your life and the life of your kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the first things I heard about politics when I came to America was an older neighbor of mine. He was Caucasian, and he said that you should go to these meetings, especially if you have children, because I am going and I am an old white guy. I don't know what your kids need. I'm going to go decide for you. So you have to show up for your children. I didn't have kids at the time, but that stuck with me. Just show up and even hear what they're saying. You don't have to be vocal or chatty to participate. Just show up and listen. It's very important to participate. Well, it's been a wonderful conversation with you. Anything else you want to tell the audience about maybe Portland, Maine, and just running for public office in this country?
Well, as I said, please stay involved, get involved. If you are here and you are an immigrant, whether you're an African immigrant or immigrant from anywhere, and you want
Hmm.
to run for office and you don't know where to start, please reach out to me. I love talking to people. I have passion for civic engagement and civic involvement, and I will do all I can to share resources with you and point you to other, whether it is regional or national groups that will support your growth. Portland. Portland is beautiful. We had a beautiful snow there last night and the night before. It's nice out there. However, if you want to eat lobster,
Yeah,
we have the best lobster in the
I
world.
heard. Yeah.
You can
Hmm.
come visit in the summer and enjoy our lobster. Portland is a welcoming place. It is beautiful. We have good food. Our restaurants always win James Beard Award. So now I'm shamelessly campaigning for Portland. Come to Portland. Come and visit us. Come and spend your money here, so that we will continue to make it a very wonderful, welcoming place.
Oh, wow. This has been Mr. Pious Ali. He is a city councillor at large, Mayor ProTem in the city of Portland in Maine. I did ask you to bring an African proverb so we can get to know the way that Africans think and speak sometimes. Just tell us if you have one and explain what it might mean. You can say it in any language, but just try to explain to us in English what it means.
Yeah, well, I will share an African proverb that we all know, because it is easy for me to remember that one, which is it Ubuntu? We are,
Ubuntu.
I am because of
Because we
all of
all
us.
are. Yeah.
Uh, but I also have it's not a proverb, it's something that stuck with me. My grandmother, as I said, who have raised a lot of kids, and who will always say this to us when we were young, that when you put a lot of pebbles in a bottle and you are trying to smoothen it, you have to keep shaking that bottle. And those
Mhm.
tiny, tiny stones or pebbles or whatever it is, they will rub each other. And
Yeah.
eventually, they will all be smoothened and they will be beautiful. And I'm sharing this is because as immigrants, especially African immigrants, when we find ourselves in a community, we tend to stay in our corner and we tend to fight with each other. It is good to have that fight, but don't continue fighting forever. Make sure that you find the sweet spot. That is why it was exciting for me when I got invited to Worcester to participate in the MOAD event. And I hope that all over this country, African immigrants continue to work with each other and build strong communities so that we can support our people.
Thank
So
you.
thank you for me.
Thank you, and thank you for offering your services. I'm going to add your website on the video so that people can always click on and reach out to you if they have questions about Maine, Portland, and running for office.
And you should also add my social media. I want more people to follow so that I
we'll
can
do
share
that.
what it is that I have. Yeah.
Absolutely, we'll do that. Thank you so much, Council Member, for being on Talk to Me Africa today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having me. Have a wonderful, and thank you for doing this.
Yeah, have a wonderful rest of your Sunday.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.